Here we go.
Fine.
3, 2, 1. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. You are listening to Baseball Outside the Box. I'm your host, Pete Caliendo. Hey, listen, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. Guess what? We're over 100 countries that coaches and players and parents are listening to. And a special hello. I'm going to get this right. ESPN Honolulu. I just have to say it slow. When I say it fast, I mess it up, folks. But I said it right this time, and I want to welcome ESPN Honolulu. Thanks for joining us. And we have a special show for you today. And before we start, just remember a couple things we ask. Just do us a favor. Go to baseballoutsidethebox.com for the audio. Subscribe. Also, YouTube, Peter Caliendo, subscribe. That just helps us get the show out. And if you like the shows, please forward them to all the folks in baseball that are either in youth baseball, high school, college, professional, all levels, parents, coaches, and players. They will learn a lot. We are thrilled. Hey, especially for Honolulu and Hawaii, we have a great guest today. My first time actually meeting him, but it's a small world as we talk off air. It's amazing. He's been coaching for a long time. Let me welcome, and I'm going to give you a little background before I welcome him. That's Carl Iwasaki. He is the head baseball coach at University of Northern Colorado since 2010. Hey, listen, folks, 2013 Coach of the Year, 20 NCAA regional tournaments, 10 NCAA College World Series appearances. We're going to get into it. He's coached in the Winter League in Hawaii. He is born in Hawaii, went to Punahou High School. I knew I was going to mess that up, Carl, but listen, let me welcome our guest. Great person. Carl, how you doing, buddy?
Hi, Peter. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It is the Punahou High School, Honolulu, Hawaii. So
I got Honolulu right, and I messed up the second one.
We'll work together on that one. No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Anything for baseball, especially for my home state.
Well, we're thrilled to have you, and I know everybody in Hawaii is going to have a great time listening to this show. Hey, let's just get it going, and let's start off with. I want to get back to your youth career when you were playing little league in Hawaii, how you grew up and how you got into the game, why baseball, and also why coaching later on in baseball.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, we don't need to go too far to say, Hawaii baseball, there's a rich tradition for obviously little league baseball. When you think about it, how many World Series have we won in the last maybe 2 decades? It's just fantastic. And I go back every time and I stop and I watch my nephews back when they were playing Little League in the windward side of Oahu. And I go and watch a couple of my old teammates' kids play. And there's such a passion for it. And there's great coaching. But anyway, regardless, there's a great passion for the game. And obviously for football as well as baseball in Hawaii. It goes back many years. Obviously, we had the Hawaii Islanders growing up, the AAA club for the San Diego Padres. So growing up as a 8, 9, 10-year-old, going to old Honolulu Stadium and watching ball games at that wooden bleachers and eating popcorn and eating Simon and having a great time watching Johnny Warehouse and Clete Boyer play. Man, that was special. I can still remember back in my youth coming up that way. So the passion for the game of baseball in Hawaii is deep rooted. My background, starting on the windward side, yes, I went to high school on the Honolulu side, but I grew up on the windward side, the North Shore, say, in Kaneohe. And, the Little League fields in Kaneohe, I mean, those things were at best, rock, lava rock fields. And we learned to play baseball on those fields. And there's such a passion, and our coaches loved it, and we played every weekend as much as we possibly could. And as a 9, 10, 11-year-old just coming up in the game, made it to the 74 Little League, talked about a little bit of the Little League World Series, or Little League Western Regional state champions. And I just said at that point, representing the state of Hawaii in San Bernardino, California, I just said, man, I think this is the greatest game, and I'd like to play it as long as I possibly can. And you never know how that turns out. So,
what was that Little League World Series experience like? Because competing against the other teams from different areas of the United States.
Yeah, so we made it to San Bernardino. We didn't quite make it to Williamsport, but we were one game away. So we played Wyoming, Colorado. We beat them both. We got to the championship game against Arizona there. And it's such a small world. And we talk about how small this is my college teammate here in Colorado, I played against him in that 74 Western Regional in San Bernardino, California. So that's how small this world is with this game. So no, that was just a great experience traveling with first time to the mainland, going to Disneyland.
Yeah.
First time, obviously being away from Hawaii, I had no idea, but we got a chance to play against other guys that were 6'2" from California to big Wyoming guys and a kid probably from Arizona, Fimbers. And I looked him up since he threw a perfect game against us.
Wow.
In that championship. I looked him up. I never did see his name at Arizona State or Arizona. So maybe he peaked at 12 years old. But no, that was a great experience. And, as you've seen in the last few years, number of years, the World Series champions coming out of the great state of Hawaii.
Absolutely.
Great experience.
It'd be interesting to know because, you talked about the fields you grew up in a little bit, maybe not the perfect fields. We talk about that on the show all the time. You look at Latin players, you look at a lot of players that don't play in great fields, and I'm sure as a college coach, you understand this better than anybody, being uncomfortable, but getting comfortable doing that. You become a better player, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. You never take anything for granted when some of these fields that I walk out to, we're going to Grand Canyon this weekend and, we're going to play against Andy Stankiewicz in the Grand Canyon Lopes. And that's going to be a good test for us. It's an immaculate ballpark. It is spring training type field. And some of these kids that I have in my club, I have a Hawaiian right now from Iolani, Shaden Kubo. He's never played at a venue like this. He's played at Nebraska, which is Haymarket Park, but he's never played at a venue like this in Arizona. And it's going to be just an absolute opportunity for him to soak it all in. So that's the cool thing about obviously coming from where we come from. And the fields are a lot better right now in Hawaii, obviously, that they're playing on. But to come and playing in the mainland and playing at Les Murakami Stadium, say, for instance, it's just a great opportunity, great treat for these guys.
Coach, when you grew up young, we're talking about youth baseball. What about other sports? Were you a multi-sport athlete? Because we talk about that a lot on the show, the importance when you're really young to play different sports.
Yeah, I played basketball and football. We played all sports. My father was a dentist. He coached all sports. And my neighbor, Larry Tavares Sr., coached every sport. So I played football, baseball, and basketball for the same three guys, my dad and my neighbor's dad.
Yeah.
So we played all sports. I love football. I did. I played at Punahou. We played, all 4 years there. I was probably not very good in basketball, so I just said I'm going to be a two-sport guy. So I did. Had a chance.
Football, and it's interesting because football, then you became a catcher. Talk about that ability to, deal with football, a tough sport, and now be able to catch. How much did that help you?
Oh, to this day, Peter, I always say when we recruit, we like to recruit football players. And football mindset is a different mindset, especially if you're talking about a defensive player such as a linebacker, defensive player who has athletic ability for baseball and football, and quarterbacks. And the reason I say quarterbacks is because I've had a number of quarterbacks here. I currently have one as well, former junior college quarterback. They're tough, they're mentally tough. And, again, man, they're winners. I mean, they're leaders. And I'm big on leadership. And I try to teach leadership here too. But that's a crossover, yeah.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. I want to stay with Hawaii a little bit with baseball, but since you mentioned this, let's talk about it just briefly here. The toughness part. As a college baseball coach at a Division I school, you went from a Division III to a Division I. That toughness, tough to teach. Is it inherent? Is it through when you how you grew up, your parents, all the attributes behind that? What's that like?
I think it's taught. I think it's learned. When you talk about toughness, and I work with the mental game here. We hired Chad Hermanson this year, who's the ex-big leaguer, coming in here. And, we've had Brian Kane here teaching mental toughness. He's nationally recognized. I think it's learned. I believe it. It's how you grow up. It's how you grow up. And I go back to when we played football in Hawaii, when we played baseball. And I go back in fact, a couple of years back, I went to watch my nephews play. And some of these dads are just rough love on these kids like we used to have. That kids don't have it anymore, maybe in the mainland. And these kids can handle it, and they grow up that way. And still to this day, I think that's why the Hawaii kid, sometimes because of our culture there, and because of the toughness and respect for others, respect for other cultures, respect for elders, respect for players. That's kind of how we were brought up, and I still see it in there. And so the kids that come here and play for me, I told you I had 15 players from Hawaii come here. Jensen Park, the MVP of the Western Athletic Conference in 2015. These kids have no fear. One, and I'll talk about a couple of these guys that are in the big leagues right now. Kolten Wong, Shane Victorino, Kurt Suzuki. These guys, they seize the opportunity because, again, when you come from a small place of 1 million plus people, when you have that opportunity to play in the major leagues or play Division I, Division III, hey, you take advantage of it. And that's a culture in Hawaii. Yeah.
And that's amazing. 1.5 million people, and the type of players that they're producing out of there. I'm interested in that because you talk about, we know the weather obviously is big there, so that helps. You can play all year round. You talk about, the toughness of some of these kids, maybe the multi-sport athletes. What else? What other attributes are helpful in Hawaii that makes them better players when it comes to baseball? Anything else?
Man, we're outside.
Yeah.
You say that. When you say weather, this is a sport where you progress when you play. You progress when you practice. You progress by obviously teaching and learning the game. And we here in Colorado, I mean, the weather's beautiful right now. Yesterday was a little rough. You saw the Rocky game. Yeah.
Yes.
But 2 days ago it was 80 degrees. It's been beautiful. We've been out practicing, getting ready for our series in Arizona. But it's a weather sport. And I coached in Texas. I've coached in California. I'm now coaching in Colorado. I see the difference in the high school caliber players due to that. And it's in Colorado, these kids play probably 60 to 80 games from March, April, May, June, July to the fall.
Talk about that, because the big thing in the US right now, there's that fine line. And I think you brought up a good point there. There's that fine line between number of games and practices, because, as there's a lot of youth programs, travel programs that do play a lot of games. Some of these kids play all year round. Where's that balance? What's your advice to coaches, players, parents, the advice of how many games, practices, and all that?
There's no magic number. We've talked about this at Division I coaches at ABCA as well too. Mm-hmm. How much we're actually playing versus teaching the fundamentals of the game. And I think we're playing more than we're practicing. And maybe I'm in my second third of my career as a coach, but I feel that more of these players, I'm watching, I talk to these 12 and under coaches, and they're coming to our camps, and they got really nice uniforms. Say, hey, Carl, hey, we played 90 games this summer. And I said, great. How many days did you practice? He goes, he didn't tell me. He doesn't know.
Right.
So for me, right now, we can overuse. Obviously, baseball's a tough game, obviously, especially if you're pitching and throwing and stressing the young body. So I think we're playing a lot of games, which is great because it teaches you competitiveness and whatnot. But I think practice is a big piece, because that was something that I feel is kind of missing or lacking from what I'm seeing in the pay to play arena right now.
Mm-hmm.
Is when they come into us, we're seeing a little bit more arm surgeries. I'm actually seeing, Pete, after this year of COVID, there's a fallout. And I'm seeing some kids saying, I don't love the game that much anymore after taking a year off, because they might be burnt out. Maybe. I don't know. It's a tough one. And I'm trying to figure that one out. And I'll probably sit at the end of this pandemic and put some notes down and figure out what exactly we need to go from here, because we need to make some changes.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's important to have a discussion about all that, because we talk about it on the show. We try to educate coaches best we can. We don't know everything, but we bring in experts that hopefully will give us some advice. And one of the areas would be that we're looking at long term. We want kids to play the game longer. We don't want them to play 4 or 5 years and then say, well, I don't want to play anymore. And I know we use the excuse. I don't know if it's an excuse, but I know sometimes we say, well, there's other things they want to do. But you and I know if they love baseball, they'll still do it. They just found something else because they don't like baseball anymore. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, we always say, I mean, we all love the game. We love the result of perseverance and overcoming adversity of the game. Baseball will never love you back. All our guys know that. I did a camp once on Maui back maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago, and Shane Victorino, Kurt Suzuki were involved in that camp on Maui. It was pretty cool.
Wow.
I'll never forget what Shane told those 10, 8, 9, 10, 12-year-old kids in Maui. He said, if you guys want to go to the beach, you'll never be a ball player. When you say about other activities, because in Hawaii, they're the biggest, greatest deterrent for great athletes to me, and I probably could have been wrong, but in my time, most of the guys who loved being at the beach or doing more of the water sports than some of the, obviously field sports, never really made it as far as they could go. Now that's from Shane Victorino saying that to the Maui kids.
Wow.
I'll never forget that. I wrote that down.
Yeah, certainly understand that. You also said, it's interesting. You said uniforms and other things. Kids nowadays, unfortunately, man, they're 9, 10 years old. They got better uniforms than some universities. They got the name on the hat, and they've got the fitted hat and all that. And I get all that, but you come from a culture, a Japanese culture in some ways, because your grandparents and your parents. Talk about that. How do you deal with that with players that you recruit that have everything? Does that make a difference in your recruiting?
A couple things that I look for when you say that, and we're out in the fall, we're out in the summer. That's the time when college coaches can recruit. We're watching skills, Peter. We're watching their skills. I'm watching how they act when they succeed. I watch how they act when they fail. And the last piece is I watch them, how they interact with their parents and their teammates. And that tells me a lot. That tells me a lot. If the kid tells his mom, hey, go get me one Gatorade, I put a check mark next to the kid, like question mark, hey, or,
yeah,
the kid who throws the 3 innings of his summer league game, he packs his bag up and he says, hey, take care, guys. I'm headed home. You put a question mark next to that kid right there. But no, these kids have great equipment, great gear, and it's awesome. And it's awesome. And they expect it also when they come to the university, especially Division I's.
Yeah.
We're sponsored by Under Armour. Sometimes the first thing the kids ask us is, hey, what kind of gear do we get here? What bat company do we have? So it is a big piece of what's going on right now. But, again, that's kind of the ebb of the time that we're kind of in, coaching these kind of kids and recruiting them.
Absolutely. And speaking about that, you also mentioned culture. I'm interested because the folks on the show know I talk a lot about Japanese baseball, but your parents, your grandparents, the things they taught you, what did you carry over into your coaching style? And you still have that pretty much there at the University of Colorado, Northern Colorado, my fault.
Yeah. No, it kind of sums up in one word. And that was my grandfather from the big island of Hawaii. He said, he would always say, hey, respect. He was a postman. He was a postmaster in Hilo, and everybody knew his name. And he said, hey, you respect everybody. You respect your opponents. And he loved baseball. And he was the one that took me to all the baseball games. You respect your opponents, you respect the game, or else I'm going to take that glove away from you and you're never going to play the game again. But yeah. He said that. He said respect. He used that word a lot, and that's kind of the neat thing, I think, coming from the culture that we have in Hawaii. And it's all cultures, man. We have obviously the multi rainbow with, the Japanese, Filipino, Portuguese, and Chinese. But, we all play the same game. That's a cool thing about this game. It's a 5-ounce piece of leather. We all play the same game. We speak different languages, and I watched the Rockies and Dodgers the other day, and you know, there's as many interpreters in the dugout for both teams.
Yes.
There are,
Yeah.
almost managers and players. But no, growing up in Hawaii, man, it was awesome, and I've got some great experiences of doing that. And my first coaching experience, real quick, I was 18 years old. Pal Eldridge, the voice of the Rainbow Warrior baseball. He had me head coach, and probably about a 14-year-old team as a freshman in college when I came home. And I picked a team, and I looked at all the kids and I said, your moms can cook, right? And they said, yes. I said, we're gonna have a potluck after every game, and I want manapu, I want noodles, I want chicken.
All of it.
And we ate really well that summer.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
it. Well, and that brings up another aspect of when it comes to coaching. It'd be interesting to understand some of the things you do to kind of build that chemistry. People use the word chemistry a lot, but some of the things you might do with your players off the field or on the field that kind of builds that rapport among players.
Yeah, we do a lot of things. For me, I'm very lucky. I'm fortunate. I've got a great head coach, and I sleep in the same bed with her every night.
Yeah.
She's Mama Bear. She's a team mom. And if you ask any of my players from 20 years ago or 15 years ago or last week, they'd always say, hey, we love coming to Mama Bear's house and break bread. She would cook for the whole team. That was our yearly thing. This is the first year in her career she hasn't been able to. We're not allowed to have the team over. So we would do team dinners. And when you talk about standards and setting, I don't use the word culture too much. I use the word standards, and obviously, when you have 40 kids or 35 players that I have this year, I have 40 kids this year due to COVID. You got to have some way outside, off the field, in order for these guys to be able to bond. And so we do things like that. We do off-site exercises. One big one is we get together for a meal at my house, and we do some team building exercise, and we talk about who's your hero, what was your highlight, and what was some of your hardships in life and things like that. So that's what college baseball's outside of the competition piece that we get a chance to kind of do for these guys.
Well, you also played for a friend of mine, and obviously a great friend of yours, and Tom Petroff, ABCA Hall of Fame coach. It'd be interesting to know a little bit about Tom, and also things you learned that, again, you carry into your coaching style.
A lot of pressure here because I'm coaching at the school that I played at.
Yeah.
And I'm coaching in a program that has 10 College World Series, 20 regional appearances,
yep.
10 super regionals, and that was like 40 years ago. So my job is obviously to bring that back. What I told Coach, because we talk probably every couple weeks or so, and he's 95 right now, still alive in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. When I talked to him a couple years back, I said, Coach, man, when I first started coaching, I want to do everything you did. I did. I said that. But now he told me to be yourself and find out how good you can be and how good your players can be. And that's what he would always tell us. And I probably was reminded when he told me that, but he said, tell your players, find out how good they can be. And if that's good enough, then you go on after the ninth inning's over and you become a success in life. Do whatever you want to do after the ninth inning from what we learned in the game. You'll be successful the rest of your life, but find out how good you can be. And that's the one thing that I've taken from him into today. Just today when I talked to a kid who's kind of having a rough time right now, performance-wise, I said, hey, are you as good as you can be yet? He said, no. I said, well, good. Find out. We got 25 more games in conference. Find out, man.
Coach, one of the toughest things, and I know I coached with a good friend of mine, a Hall of Famer, and also just a great person. And we talked about it a little bit off air. One of the things you hear a lot of times is, man, players would play 100% for him. They'd run through a wall for that coach. what does it take to get players to do that?
You know, you just you gotta treat them, again, like your own sons to me. And, if there's one thing that, I get feedback, you don't get feedback while they're playing for you. Okay. You get feedback after 5 years after they play for you, or 10 years after they play for you. You hear from them and they'll tell you, they say something like, hey coach, I really appreciate, this, that, or the other. But the one thing they need to know is, do you care? I'm taking this from Clint Hurdle when he says the three big things he talks about is, can you make me better? Do you care about me? And those are the kind of the things that these guys need to know. Do you want to make me better? And the bottom line is, you got to care about these guys, care about every single one. That's a big thing right now. And I don't know about run through the wall for coaches anymore. I don't know if kids do that, because it's all about, hey man, you got a chance to get drafted. I got guys in this room right now with 25 more, appearances in front of scouts this weekend and whatnot. And I think their mindset's more so on, hey, I want to get my name called someday. But, playing for the jersey name right now, I think I'm trying to stress that as much as possible anymore. Playing for the school, playing for your town, playing for your hometown, playing for your high school, for the name on the front of your jersey.
Mm-hmm.
We're losing a little of that, and I like to see that kind of come back.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Again, I talked off the air, I've been to Japan a lot, and there you have to earn everything. They don't give you a number. They don't give you a uniform. You don't get anything till you earned it. Here that we kind of give it to them. Now, college baseball is a different dynamic, and I understand that. The balance between winning, because you got to win. That's your job. I mean, you have to win college baseball or they'll find somebody else. But at the same time, you also have to develop players that are not your top players. How do you balance those guys not playing or playing time and all that?
Yeah, Peter, this is the toughest year. And I had a conversation yesterday with a guy in my office, because we're short this year on games. Our conference, we're not allowed the number of weekday non-conference games. We usually play Tuesday games or Wednesday games. And and this year, a lot of conferences like the Big Ten conference, especially in the Mountain West, I play Air Force every year. Air Force is not allowed midweek games. So these kids who are not the ones and twos on Saturday, Friday, Saturday, Sundays, they don't have a chance on Tuesdays to compete against outside competition. So what I'm trying to do is, we're competing inter squads every Tuesday and Wednesday right now against each other, against our pitchers who may not have been able to throw on the weekends. So we're trying to get through this year with that. Yet it's tough. This is a tough year for those kids. It's a developmental program where I'm a mid-major. I'm not a SEC or the Big 10 or Big 12. So we have to develop them. The one thing also that I'm hearing from my colleagues around the country, our expanded rosters, Peter, we're at about 40. I got 40. Some of my friends have 45 to 50 on their rosters. What happens is, we have a lot of grad transfers going to these big Power 5 schools. I even have 1 or 2 grad transfers. What those guys have done since they've left their schools and they've come here for 1 year because of COVID, that freshman that should have gotten 30 at-bats is now getting 5.
Wow.
And 15, because I've got a grad transfer who has come in here as an all-conference dude from the West Coast Conference, say, or from the Summit, who has 400 at-bats, college. We want to, use that guy sometimes. I mean, that's kind of what's happening around the country. So the younger developmental guys, they're being held back almost a full year.
Wow.
Due to these transfers. And it's we'll see how that turns out. It's going to take a couple years.
And the other aspect of that, we see it on Major League Baseball now, the injury factor. Some of these kids have not been playing or practicing as much, maybe not prepared, maybe a little different for your situation. What did you guys do during COVID to kind of keep the guys fresh, not knowing exactly when you're going to start, and then all of a sudden you have to go?
Yeah. Feels like a year ago.
Yeah.
We were shut down. So I'll walk you back through it. My last game was against University of Nebraska last March 12th. 2020, and we're in a restaurant. We're about ready to go over to play Creighton on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we get the phone call that the season was canceled. And I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska, and you could have heard a pin drop in that restaurant. So you've heard these stories around the horn from all of us.
Yeah.
We were told no activity. We were told no summer leagues. So the summer leagues were shut down. The gyms were shut down, the weight rooms. We couldn't even let them go on our field. So yes, there was a shutdown of practice and playing from last year. So we've had to ramp it back up this fall and get going. And, we've had a challenging start to my 2021 year, and we're in the second half and we're playing good baseball right now. But at the same time, I think we've kind of, started a little behind of where we were the year before, just because we've had, 8-10 months off of competition. So,
is there something you had to do different, whether it's, larger pitching staff or anything different there?
Well, we do have a larger pitching staff. And again, we went from 35 on the roster to 41, due to the returners. Plus I had 1 or 2 transfers, but, no, we've got a full clubhouse here. And, again, we've got 8-10 guys that are going to be finishing up their careers after this year in their 5th year. So they returned. They should have graduated last year and they've returned here. So,
and that hurt the recruiting too, because you got 6 or 8 coming back, and now you can't recruit as many players. A lot of players are sitting there pretty much didn't have an opportunity to play.
Yeah, the 2020 senior high school players, there's a lot of good players out there that obviously were not able to. We wanted to, but we weren't able to obviously sign them and bring them on because our rosters were already full, at least at Division I level. Now, there goes all the way down to junior college, because everybody got their full year back, and even the junior colleges are completely full. So, man, I tell you, Peter, like I said, it's going to take 2-3 years to figure out how this is going to look, and the ABCA is going to be a part of it to maybe kind of find out how we can move forward with legislation and help these 2020 high school seniors, who may have not had their shot to get to get into a college or even get drafted. It was a really challenging year.
Big question comes up all the time, and it's, because every college coach is a little different. Some of the answers are similar, but the recruiting process is so important in college baseball. It'd be interesting to get your take on kind of the overall, what you look for, what maybe turns you off, when you go out the games. I know you already have an idea of the players and all that, but give us an idea of what type of player you're looking for here.
I'm looking for a kid that obviously can, we know who we can win with, right? Every kid you can win with. I want to know who I can also lose with. That's what I say when I'm watching these guys, in the summer leagues and also in the fall leagues. I watch them after a successful at bat and a not, a bad at bat. Just kind of watching. But I'm recruiting talent. We all have to. This is what we do. Looking at players, especially, when we go back to Hawaii. When I look at the Hawaii kid, I know I'm going to probably, like my boy right here from Iolani, he's an undersized, 5'8", 170-pound, ball player with average to, average speed, but he's got above average bat and he's got above average heart. So that's the kid. I talked about Jensen Park, 2015, drafted by the Rockies out of Hawaii. Played for me for 4 years, all-time leading offensive numbers here at the University of Northern Colorado. We've played baseball here for 97 years. And a kid from Hawaii owns all offensive here at the university because he's got a big heart. A guy who, I guess what we talk about is, do they have that extra intangible piece right there? Do they have that grit? Because baseball is going to beat you up, man. You got to be able to hang in there and overcome. So, yeah,
like you said, boy, you talk about the mental game, and you've had some great people there, like Brian Kane and them. That we keep talking the mental game, and now you're seeing more and more coaches introduce the mental game in practice. I remember when I played, we didn't really have that, but then later on, they talked about the mental game and they worked with it. Work with the players on it, let's say in a classroom, or talk to them about it. But now it seems like it's part of the actual practice plan.
Yeah. We tried to implement that as much as possible. And again, during the in season, it's a challenge because we've got so much time that we can be on the field with our guys. So the classroom time is more in the fall. We do a lot more of our worksheets, workbook, videos, everything in the fall. I send them podcasts right now as well as videos. Great videos out there right now that even from Brian Kane's videos and those kind of things that we used to put out right there. Our guys eat those things up and just kind of refresh and reminder and staying within their routines and rhythm of the game. Because every big leaguer you talk to, Mike Trout to Evan Longoria, there's a great E60 on Evan Longoria if you take a look at that. He said the mental side of the game is the most important. Kirk Suzuki also has a podcast out or a video that I saw, and he swears by it. He swears by mental side of the game of baseball. So yeah.
The other area I'd love to ask you about, and this is something I think that is interesting because you go worldwide. I know you've traveled also. You look at Latin America, you get a lot of players that are shortstops that are really good. Of course, they have a lot of good players in general. Japan, you're seeing pitchers come over. In Hawaii, are there specific players that are better in one position, or is it pretty much an overall rounded players?
Man, that's a good question. I mean, so I came up in an era. We'll go back a little bit. I came up watching University of Hawaii baseball, Les Murakami. Back in the old days. And I'll just throw out some names. I'll drop them, man, because there's a guy named Derek Tatsuno, Kurt Watanabe, Ron Nomura catching, Vern Ramey left hand swinging, hitting balls out of the ballpark, and a 5'8" guy named Greg Oniate, who would just absolutely 110 bat speed hit balls out of the stadium there. So I grew up watching them, and I wanted to play. I wanted to play for the Rainbows. Back then we were the Hawaii Rainbows. And I get to my senior year, I asked Coach Eldridge, hey, did Coach Murakami ever come talk to you about me? And he said, yeah, kind of, but your dad said you're going to the mainland. So they kind of and my dream school actually was possibly playing with my teammate Joey Meyer from Punahou. And of course, I caught summer league for Sid Fernandez. So that's my era coming up, watching those kind of guys. But the grit and the grind. I mean, today's guys coming out of Hawaii, Peter. I mean, and these guys are in the game and through the game now. Suzuki and Victorino. You talk about Kolten Wong, and these are different breed of guys right now. Now we got Kiner Falefa, and we got Jordan Yamamoto up in the big leagues. And this is from again a state of less than 2 million people, whatever. And we've got these many big leaguers that are currently playing and who have been in the game in the last 10, 15, 20 years. Pretty proud of that. The grit that we have there, I just say we're just the kids that I've had here for the 15 or so that have played here for me in Division I level. They just have a level of mental toughness, perseverance. And we kind of need that because we're a mid-major baseball university, and we go and play Nebraska. We play, University of Washington and, all the big power schools in the non-conference. And, you just got to have that kind of mindset that, we're going to play anybody.
Well, you keep saying that, the mental toughness, the grit. It reminds me of, we go into Eastern Europe, a lot of tough kids in Eastern Europe. I coach there. And it's something that's developed within their own culture. So I love hearing that. What a great place to recruit, Hawaii, man. Now I think after this show, you're going to see more coaches even recruiting there. There might be more competition for you now, Coach.
Well, I got an edge on some of those guys because I tell every kid, and the kid right here today, I told him, hey, listen, I brought you here. I can send you home.
Yeah. and folks, just so you know, Coach has got a meeting here coming up, and he was so grateful to join us here. I'm going to take a quick question from Chris Fanta, a very good friend of mine, super agent. Hey, Coach, what separates your 2013 championship team from all the other teams you had?
Oh gosh, again, that's a great question, and I will say this. And I was in a Division III school. You mentioned going from Division III back to my alma mater here. I was in Texas. I was at a Division III school. I didn't even know what Division III was. We had greedy players. I recruited football players as well as baseball players because in Texas, you recruit a football player, you're going to get an athlete, and they're all they're all tough, gritty football guys. So, again, that was an interesting dynamic, but it comes together with guys who have discipline and the mindset of we're going to prove ourselves. I'll be honestly, I've got a lot of answers to that, but the team I took over in Texas in 2004, in 2002, they went 2-38. Okay. And when I asked them, I don't care about the 38. Tell me about the 2.
Yeah.
And the AD said, well, the first one, they just won one in the later part of the season. And the last one and the second one in that 2-38, it was a walk-off home run against the leading team in the conference. It was a one swing of the bat, walk-off grand slam. And they dogpiled. Okay, wow. Peter?
Yeah.
So I heard about that same team in 2000, when I was in Texas, the 2017 team, when they were seniors, they dogpiled and walked off the field and went to NCAA regional. My 2013 team was very similar. We won the Great West Conference title. These guys, it was with Jensen Park. He was the MVP of the Great West Conference also at that time. But no, we just had as many guys playing together with the right mindset and it's a game of tools and ability and again, man, sometimes it's luck, sometimes it's avoiding injuries, but some years when you get special years like that, when they say coach of the year, I always say it's team of the year and coaching staff of the year. But I accept those awards, and I was told by Jeff Bannister too, you got to accept that award because you need to talk about those teams. So that's kind of the 2013 and 2006, 2004 teams, a lot of those guys like that. So
it's almost like we have a script here, folks. And on the show, we have no scripts. We ask questions and then we just have a discussion. And I say that, Coach, because, you have an interesting dynamic there. You have a former major league manager. You just mentioned them, Jeff Bannister. Love to hear the dynamic. We got about 8 more minutes left or 10 more minutes left. The dynamic between you and him and how you work together on the field, off the field. What's that like? Well,
we go back all the way to the Hawaii Winter Baseball League. When I was a general manager for the Honolulu Sharks. So we brought in Jeff Bannister, who was a 27, 28-year-old minor league A-ball manager. He's a former Texas Ranger skipper, 2015 manager of the year, AL manager of the year. Well, he's on my staff now. His son is here. He moved to Colorado. And we've been good friends for the last 25 years. So I asked him to come, not so much mentor our players, but mentor our coaches. And I'm big on mentoring coaches and bringing, teaching these guys to be, head coaches themselves. But he's done a great job. It's awesome. He's a great friend. He just knows more about baseball than, we'll ever know. And he gives it. And he's selfless and he just gives himself. So that's really cool to have him here. And he gives me the truth. He'll tell me. I mean, he'll tell me the truth, and I can handle it because I know where he comes from with that. So. But yeah, it's really neat.
I was going to ask, because of, working together on the field in the dugout, for our coaches out there, working with somebody, sometimes that could be intimidating to some young coaches. They've got a coach that's a lot more experience. Advice there, how to work with your assistants and, the responsibilities they get and all that.
Yeah. I mean, media guy asked me the other day, say, hey, what was that decision you made there in the 8th inning? I say, hey, that was Manny's decision, man. It didn't work.
There you go.
Wasn't mine, man. It's got a big league manager. You got to go over and talk to him right now, boy. No, it's great because I mean he's with me at home on our home dugout, so he hadn't traveled on the road with me yet. But it's great because I can in game go, what we got to do here, Skip? We call each other Skip. So what are we gonna do, Skipper? And he's like, hey, man, this, that, and the other. And that's fun. It's unique. How about that? Unique. But we got to have, it needs to be special. And your staff, I always tell them to be successful. And I want to talk to coaches out there who are listening. Probably the best coaches have to have no ego. Got to lose our ego. We got to have zero ego when you walk in the door and zero ego when you leave for the day. and you got to have that. And it's all about the players, all about teaching players. It's not about the scoreboard. Yeah, it is for some of us that have to, obviously talk to our ADs at the end of the year and talk about championships and scores and winning percentages. But man, it's all about the players in the long run. Who are these guys going to be in 10, 15, 20 years after the ninth inning? And that's the biggest thing for me right now. Maybe 20 years ago or 15 years ago, it was a little different. It's all about the scoreboard.
Yeah.
It's all about I get the next job or whatever. But no, man, right now it's about the kids and about the players and getting them through this challenge. It's not tough. It's just this challenge that we all have gone through in the last year.
I love that you brought up coaches, because on the show, again, we talk about, the game doesn't move forward, especially at the grassroots level, without good coaching. You mentioned the great coaching in Hawaii at the grassroots level with the young kids. I mean, you've got to have it. The more we can help educate, especially the volunteers, because it's not what they do for a living. So you have guys like yourself helping out. For our young coaches out there, here we are, a college baseball coach, you're making decisions. How do you deal with that decision and I know people say you never second guess yourself, but the mind's different. The mind, I know there's times, even though I don't want to second guess myself, there were times where I went home and said, why did I do that? Did I make the right decision? How do you deal with that? What's your advice there?
Man, I tell you, you have to know your personnel, know your strategy, and know your opponent. And you need to obviously have a game plan prior to the first pitch of the game, but everything goes out the window when it's the bottom of the ninth inning and you got his guy and our guy, and what situation do you want to put yourself in? But sometimes you just have to rely on your experience. For me, it's relying on my experience, and as a coaching staff, we get together as well prior to innings going out. If it's extra inning game, or we always have a plan. We have a come from behind plan late, extend the lead plan early, all those type of scenarios. So you always plan for the worst case scenario or the best case scenario. So, but you have to trust your instincts. Second guessing will only, again, man, that only drive you crazy. At the end of the game, you take your uniform off, you go home and you be present, be with your family, and that game's over for the day. You got another one tomorrow. Just learn from it and move forward, so, the game can beat you up sometimes, especially as coaches. Players do the same time, but coaches, the same thing. So my advice to coaches is, man, trust your instincts and again, trust your players to be successful and not guard against failure. Because, I think there's a lot to be learned by failing too now. A lot to be learned from success, but there's a lot to learn from failing. So, you mix those two together. Sometimes these players come out with a good experience. Either
Absolutely.
way.
And we all know it's part of building, hopefully building men out there that go on to do great things in society and help people out. Coach, couple more questions, because I know we're down to the limit here. The one thing I was thinking about was that, as far as coaches out there, what you gave some great advice. And I'd love to hear in reference to when coaching the actual game, what's your thought process going on in the dugout during the game?
Yeah, I'm actually sometimes not even watching the game, and I'm watching if it's the third inning, I'm watching what it's going to look like in the seventh. It was taught to me a long time ago: plan for success, plan for the next, the scenarios. So I've already, in my mind, I'm going to know it's playing chess. I'm playing chess here, and I know we've got a 2-run lead. I know who I need to bring in case this guy gets his pitch count, or if, obviously he's started getting touched up, or we're 3 times through the lineup. I know what I'm going to do already. So I already have that in the plan and the progress. If we have a big inning, and I want to extend the pitcher, maybe go one more inning, maybe we'll do that. So that I'm always thinking about it at least 2 to 3 innings ahead of time. So sometimes I'm not even watching the game. I'm watching the scenario play out in forward progress. So, again, that's the fun piece of doing what we do as coaches in this game is setting your kids up for success and knowing who's going to pinch hit, who's going to pinch run? Who's going to be the late game defender? You know,
Mm.
when we have that opportunity, or who's going to be the late game pinch hitter because we're down 5. I don't need a defender. I need
Right.
So, yeah, you have all that in the plan. I guess have a plan. Have a plan.
There you go. Perfect. And then let's finish it off with this. And we got to mention these two guys. I love watching them play. And you hear baseball, you know, baseball is a sport. You don't have to have a certain size. You don't have to be, you know, just any kid can play baseball. But when you look at Kirk Suzuki and Kolten Wong, you know, they're not very big players. Let's finish it off with why these guys are so special, why they're so good at the major league level, other than we know they've got the skills.
I'll say both of them, and I've only met Kolten, but I've met Kurt, and I've sat and spoken, eaten dinner with them. They're both really good people. I mean, they're exceptional human beings.
Yeah,
and they're talented, yes. And Zook, you know, I told you earlier, I recruited him to come to Saddleback College when I was in Southern California in 2003. He said, "Hey, I'm going to try and walk on at Cal State Fullerton," and I told him, "Hey, good luck." Good luck.
and he did. Wow.
Well, he not only made the team, he ended up as the College World Series MVP.
Wow.
How about that? But they're just awesome people. They're the greatest. And, you know, like, you know, I'm just throwing names out there, but, you know, everywhere from, you know, the men who have represented the great state in baseball, you know, and the great coaches. I mean, you know, there's too many names to mention, but, you know, you're just proud. You're just proud when you're watching Major League Baseball and they say, "Hey, Jordan Yamamoto, Kiner Falefa, you know, these guys are from the great state of Hawaii, Shane Victorino." That's really neat. And so what happens is the young little league kids are all wearing Suzuki jerseys, Victorino jerseys, Kiner Falefa jerseys. You go to Oahu, there's probably Texas Ranger jerseys walking around the little league field. So that's special. That's special, and it makes you proud to obviously coming from a great state, you know, and you know, for our sport at least. And you know, they're great representatives. I'd say that great representatives for our state in the game of baseball.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, after this show, I'm going to be following more Hawaii players in the big leagues, minors, college. I'm going to have to follow a lot of these guys. Coach, I know you got somewhere to go. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Absolutely. I appreciate you, Peter. Anytime you need anything, just give me a holler.
Thank you, sir. That is Carl Iwasaki, University of Northern Colorado head baseball coach. Thank you to Coach. Thank you to Brian Crocker, our producer with the Lineup Media Group. Thanks to everybody in the U.S. and around the world for listening to Baseball Outside the Box, the show that loves to interview baseball's best coaching minds who love the challenge of status quo. Don't forget, go to baseballoutsidethebox.com, audio, YouTube, Peter Caliendo. Check us out on the social media. Thanks, everybody. Stay healthy, stay safe. God bless you all. Have a great baseball season. See you in the next show.